All right, what's poppin', everyone? We are back for another episode of PBO Week 2. We are going up against the Tennessee Tyranitars, and we have played them before in Season 1. We had a couple of good games, definitely a lot of enjoyable ones, definitely some close ones. It'll definitely be interesting to see what happens this time for Week 2. In addition to Week 2, we also had a slight rule change in terms of best of 3, but you're not allowed to have any changes. I'm not going to really go into detail of like why we decided to do that, but it's easier on Soren to check teams, and also there's still some competitively viableness to not having changes in between the matches. Also makes the games, I think, a little bit closer. So yeah, still should be very, very interesting even with the slight rule change. But yeah, without further ado, we are going up against Tennessee Tyranitars. But first, we'll go over what my team is. So I did make a trade that went into effect Week 2. So I dropped Scyther, picked up Spite Ops, which is really good for, obviously, it learns Spikes, Toxic Webs, and one of the only Pokemon that learns Sticky Web. Next, you can see from my squad, Sneasler is my Terra Captain and is fighting and flying. Braviary Hisui, Rotom-Mo, Klefki, Lycanroc, Pyroar, Samurott Hisui, Tatsugiri, Spite Ops, Sandakana, Carbonable. And obviously from my squad, we can see we still got, this isn't everything in terms of a team, but you can still see we have slight fairy weakness, flying weakness, ground weakness a little bit here, and fighting weakness. And then my opponent's team is this is the Tennessee Tyranitars, and they have Goldingo, which is also their Terra Captain, which I think is Terra Steel and Terra Fighting, which is obviously really good because with this type combination, they can't hit, what is it, dark types for the most part, and most of the time this thing runs Focus Blast. This thing is really deadly because it gets Nasty Plot and Recover. Also could run like a subset and just really disgusting. Also, this ability, Good as Gold, I think it doesn't allow any status moves, so can't be statused, and also you can't defog on it, as well as ghost type, so it blocks spin. So very, very good Pokemon in terms of preventing your opponent from spinning and removing their hazards. But also from their team, from what I can understand, I don't know if this is completely right, but from what I'm seeing is I don't think that there is a rapid spinner / defogger on their side of the team. So that will look into what we're prepping for. But they have Goldingo, Goodra Hisui, which is very bulky, really great stats too. Arcanine, Mismagius, Barraskewda, Berserker, Gallade, Basculegion Female, which is really strong because it can run Swift Swim or Adaptability, or even Mold Breaker, and it does learn Last Respects, which is a very, very strong move. Next we have Tauros Paldea, very good fighting type, very fast as well with 100 base speed. Mudsdale, very good defensive, Stealth Rocker, and then Lycanroc Midnight, who obviously has no guard and some pretty good moves, some pretty good rock moves that never miss, but it is a little bit slow, so that's kind of the benefit of it. But obviously I think Tennessee Tyranitar has more experience with older generations compared to this generation. I know that they were asking for a little bit of help on my part, which is totally fine. I wish I could have reached out and tried to help a little bit more, but I've been really, really busy these past couple weeks, but I'm sure it'll still be a close match. But breaking down their team, obviously you can see here they have definitely some weaknesses as well as duplicate typing. So they have 3 ghost types, 3 steel types, and the water and fighting is not a big deal, but obviously you can see that they have a lot of missing types as well as they have some weaknesses here and there. So as simple as I'm going to make this is they have a lot of weaknesses to dark except for Tauros, so I definitely want to bring Samurott Hisui, as well as they have no immunity to ghost and a lot of things that are neutral or weak to ghost, so I'm going to try to bring ghost moves if I can. Also, another thing is they don't have a rapid spinner or defog, so that also will be important of like what I want to do in terms of hazards. But yeah, overall I have to be careful about this team because things can still sweep me, for sure. So I have to be careful about that. But moving on to the team and what I'm bringing for week 2. Obviously, as I showed before, their team is mostly weak to dark type, so I'm definitely bringing Samurott Hisui. Also, they have no rapid spinner / defogger. So Samurai Hisui has a really cool move, Ceaseless Edge, which sets a layer of spikes on your opposing side. So I'm hoping that I can kind of just spam this move and deal a lot of damage, as well as it's boosted by sharpness, so it does more damage and gets spikes on their field, which will hopefully whittle their side of the field. I'm running 252 speed. I was thinking about running Jolly just in case. What is it? Basket Legion female is also Scarf, but if it's Scarf, then I don't really have to worry about it with Samurai Hisui, so that's kind of nice. But yeah, Samurai Hisui is here as our Scarfer because we really want to get off Ceaseless Edges to get spikes up, as well as do a lot of damage. We have Razor Shell, I think, for just water priority for things that we can't hit with Dark type, but I'm pretty sure everything we can. This is also like a middle ground play if I need to go for it, as well as I have Secret Sword in the back for Gudra if it wants to switch in on a water or dark type move, which will most likely be the counter to this thing. Not entirely sure though. But making it 252 Choice Scarf allows me to outspeed, let's see, we're base 85, so it also allows me to outspeed Goldingo, Arcanine, and I think Tauros Paldea, even if I think it's these four or so I can outspeed, as long as they're not scarfed. Obviously Barraskewda will still outspeed me even with the scarf if it's that fast, but yeah, that's the set for Samurai Hisui. Next we have Sneasler, and I'm bringing some heat this week. All right, so we got some cool stuff going on. Sneasler is here. We got Close Combat, U-Turn, Swords Dance, and Shadow Claw. I think we're speed creeping whatever, Miss Magius probably. Miss Magius, so running enough EVs to outspeed max speed Miss Magius, put the rest in HP. Still gonna outspeed by Barraskewda, which sucks, but we'll kind of have to figure that out as we go. But with this set, we're running an Unburden, Terra Fight, but we have Red card, which I think will be really, really interesting. So the thing about Sneasler is that it definitely forces a lot of switches, as well as with this little bit of HP investment, like I can still take a hit. So if I do a calc right and I'm not getting one shot, there's a high chance that I can Swords Dance up and proceed to sweep after they hit me with Red card and I'm unburdened. Or like for example, they have a wall out that's like wanting to hit me, I Swords Dance up, and or no wait, what's the scenario? They have something that's faster than me, they hit me, they switch out, and then something's taking a close combat that normally wouldn't want to take it and then dies. Mainly I'm also going to be spamming Shadow Claw because, as I previously showed, they have no immunities or resistances to ghost type moves, which is really good for us. So yeah, we're just working with that. This is also like no disrespect on Tennessee's Tyranitars draft of like having these weaknesses and stuff, because I know he's definitely new to this generation and he can still make a lot of switches to get rid of these weaknesses, as well as I don't think it's really that bad of a team with all the weaknesses. Like, you have so many strong Pokemon in here that you can really do some things. But just a common note, trying to be respectful to my boy. So Klefki, next bring Klefki. This is just standard 252 defensive. Leftovers, Pranksters, Spikes. We definitely want to get up to do as much damage as possible to our opponent. Foul Play, I think this is a counter to Goldingo, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head why I'm specifically bringing this set. It could also be for Glade, but mostly just defensive stuff. I think also for a potential check to Gudra Hisui. But yeah, we got Spikes, Foul Play, Light Screen. Is just kind of like a backup thing for a set that I have further on down the line. Then we have Steel Beam. Steel Beam is for in case like Goldingo wants to get in on me and kind of set up. Steel Beam is kind of nice because it's essentially I do damage, but I also kind of sacrifice myself in a way. So most of the time I think I can break a sub, although I didn't really check. But it's really kind of just like a sacking play of like, I don't want Klefki in, but I also don't have a free switch in, so I can Steel Beam and kind of get access to a free switch in that way. Next we have Tatsugiri Stretchy, the yellow one. I don't know, I didn't realize there were, I knew there were different colors, but I didn't know what the stretchy one meant. We're running Assault Vest, Storm Drain, obviously because Commander does nothing. Rapid Spin, Draco Meteor, Surf, and Mirror Coat. The main reason that we're running this is a check to Goldigo, I'm pretty sure, or Goldango. This is mostly going to be our check for that, although if it Terra fights, we technically do not have a resistance to that, but we do have Assault Vest, and we can start spamming serves, which definitely at this EV spread, I will be breaking substitutes as well if it is sub. Only pain I think is probably like a recover nasty plot set, but even then I'm thinking like maybe this mirror coat will come in where they just want to spam a move and I can just reflect it back and do a lot of damage. So that is Tatsugiri. Next we have Pyroar. My opponent does have 3 ghost types, so it's very good for me to bring my immunity. So yeah, I'm bringing Pyroar this week with Unnerve. Don't know if this will really proc, but might be useful. Then we have Heavy Duty Boots, obviously, so we don't want to get hit with rocks and stuff. Then we have Dark Pulse to hit the ghost types. Flamethrower I think is for Goldigo specifically. Also isn't that bad overall. Next we have Hyper Voice just for some stab, and then Yawn can force some switches and also cause some sleeps. Why is this 248? Oh, this speed creeps Miss Magius by 1 point because Pyroar of course is 106 speed and Miss Magius is 105. That's funny. And then finally the fire of this team for this week. We have Braviary Hisui with a weakness policy. So yes, we're bringing a really cool set this week. So Braviary Hisui, looking at stats, very high HP and very high special attack stat. The only thing is that's pretty slow. So we're running a weakness policy set. So hopefully the amount of ghost types that they have running on their team, I can take a hit. Well, I can bring this in and let it take a hit, and hopefully in that turn they don't set up and they actually hit me with a ghost type move, because if they set up then I'm screwed. But we are weakness policy, and I think this EV spread allows me to take any ghost type move as long as it's not +2. So we're really hoping that we're not taking any +2s. But if you look at their team, they actually have like pretty good resistances to psychic. They have 3 steel types, but the thing is that with Tinted Lens, our moves that deal not effective damage just deal double damage, or like effective damage essentially. And we are running Esper Wing, so this is a backup in case I can't sweep with stored power and agility. Well, let's go with the main option first. So turn 1, we go in on this thing on hopefully a ghost type. We agility up and they shadow ball us, proccing our weakness policy. And after that, we just completely sweep with stored power. Because of Tinted Lens, we just murk everything. And then back up in case this falls through. We have Shadow Ball to just hit things. As again, no immunities to ghosts or resistances. And then we have Esper Wing, so which also might give me a chance of like, maybe I need the damage right away instead of going for agility. This can start to raise my speed, and I think after, I don't think it's 1 speed boost, I think it's probably 2, potentially 3. I can start outspeeding things, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so far that is the team building. I'm hoping that we definitely get a dub this week, although I think it will still definitely be a hard matchup, and I gotta play well for sure. But hopefully we can catch a dub this week, coming back from last week's match. But yeah, I think without further ado, we'll get on to the battle. Yeah, peace. Alright, and we are back for the battles. We are going over game 1, and initially we see my opponent's team, the Tyranitars. Of course, they're bringing Goldigo, Tauros, Paldea Combat, which I did think would come because I think it's like a mandatory resistance for my Samurott. Then we have Gallade, Lycanroc, Miss Magius, and Barraskewda. And honestly, when I saw Barraskewda, I was like, damn, I really did not want him to bring that, but definitely a smart choice on his decision because it does outspeed my whole team. So first game 1, I think overall we still have a very good chance of getting up spikes and kind of getting our plan off. I think turn 1 I immediately wanted to go for Samurott, and immediately started ceaseless edging stuff off the rip. So you can see turn 1 I lead off with my Samurott, and Lycanroc comes out. but I was nervous that this might be Scarf Lycanroc with like close combat, so I was not willing to risk my Samurott turn 1, so I did switch out. Also, this kind of bluffs like that I might not be Scarf, so I think later on that kind of plays a role. But I do switch out to Klefki's just to scout to see if he is close combat Scarf CC, or at least he could have also been Focus Sash close combat. So he does switch into Tauros Paldea because this says Intimidate and can kind of wall my Samurott a little bit. So we can see from this set. Then from here, I was predicting an Earthquake, but then I was looking at Braviary Hisui. I was like, well, Braviary Hisui can definitely resist the fighting type moves. So even if he goes with the fighting type move right here, we should be able to live it. And also maybe we could set up, because looking at this team, I was like, well, Barraskewda is already pretty fast. So maybe there's a chance that we can go ahead and sweep here and like not even have to worry about Aqua Jet because Barraskewda is already fast. So here he goes for an Earthquake. We do switch into Braviary. Next turn goes for the Stone Edge. Of course, proccing my weakness policy. I do set up an Agility. Also at this moment, I kind of was like a big oh shit moment for me, because I realized that even at +2 speed, I think I like barely outsped this by like a couple points, and then I did not outspeed the Barraskewda. So I absolutely had to go for Esper Wing to get the +1 speed boost, and at this point I now do outspeed Barraskewda. But then he immediately brings it in. I was thinking, oh, he must think that he's faster than me, but I am +3 speed now, so I should be good. And then we get hit with Aqua Jet. So he did decide to bring Aqua Jet, and I was like, oh, man, we could have just had like the easiest sweep, easiest game ever, but unfortunately, definitely making it difficult here. So they go for Aqua Jet. Then I switch into Klefki's. I'm like, okay, well, this thing definitely can't hit me. I resist most of its stabs. It'll most likely switch out here. So he actually goes for an Aqua Jet, and that does 25% to my Klefki. Meaning now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, this thing's definitely banded after I saw that damage. So I start setting up spikes. Switches out into Lycanroc. I'm just going to continue getting all my spikes up because obviously, as I said before, they don't have a defog or a rapid spin. So the spikes are really, really good for my team. So I get all 3 layers of spikes up. They Fire Fang. After this Fire Fang, I was really considering whether I should set up a Light Screen, because Light Screen is good for Goldigo, Miss Magius, but everything else not really. And I was really stuck between whether I should go for a Foul Play, or should I Steel Beam, sacrifice my Klefki, or if I should set up a Light Screen. And I do end up setting up a Light Screen, but I think it was a misplay because they actually end up having bulk up Lycanroc. They also ended up being a Life Orb set. And I think at this point, this was definitely a misplay. I definitely should have Steel Beamed, because I think if I Steel Beamed, I just one-shot this thing. Or even a Foul Play would have done a lot of damage, but essentially this Light Screen does not do very much for me, and it now puts me in a worse position because now Lycanroc can Fire Fang, and it essentially forces out my next Pokemon, and being Samurai Hisui. I really wanted it to be Sneasler. Like, if he did not have this +1 boost, I was willing to go Sneasler and Swords Dance up and just start doing a lot of damage. Obviously Barraskewda is still in the back, but yeah. Let's see, we continue going forward. We're obviously Scarf, but he doesn't know that yet. So we still outspeed us. Then he goes into this. I'm obviously seeing now that he's banded, so I do switch into my Sneasler for the close combat. We take that pretty well because we are poison type still, although we do not take that, like, we do not take 2. After seeing that, our red card activates, which is actually huge for us, because if we, I mean, it depended on our other item. Obviously, if we were unbirded, we outsped. But that red card actually allows us to not get hit by the Barraskewda, so I thought that was a pretty cool tech. Also at this point, I saw that this Goldingo is out. I'm like, okay, well, I definitely can't just like hard switch into Tatsugiri, because it could go for like I resist both of its stabs, but if it just goes for like a Terra Fighting move, I get wrecked. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sack Sneasler here, and then hopefully I can bring out my Pyroar or something else. But actually, very luckily for me, they go for Terra Fighting turn 1. I get a Shadow Claw off, it does no damage, but also they go for a Make It Rain. Meaning, I don't know if it was a switch, but also I'd still have Light Screen up, so maybe Light Screen was valid at this point. But we actually take the make it rain specifically because of the light screen now. And looking at this, now that the he is fighting now and I can hit him with my fighting type moves, I can just tear a fight and kill it, which is really good for me. Next, I think Barraskewda comes out, and at this point, like, there's still not a guaranteed win for me because Barraskewda can lock itself into close combat and just completely wreck my team. I think Tatsugiri is the only one that can potentially, I think, take one. The other two do not take a close combat. So at this point, it's still definitely scary of whether we lose. They go for Aqua Jet. Definitely their best play in that point. Obviously, I know that they're banded, and they go for another Aqua Jet. I think in terms of their play, I think they're, at this point, we're supposed to switch and just sack something off and then come back in and start threatening close combat. And I think I probably would have lost. So I don't think I positioned very well for this, but I think their best outcome here was actually to switch out and maybe just like sack Gallade or Miss Magius and then bring this back out and just start close combat spamming. And I think they low-key would have won the game. So very, very scary that even though we did end up winning this first battle, that we could have lost. So we go for a Ceaseless Edge, obviously kill that thing. Gallade comes out, takes spikes damage, which is really good. We go for another one. I was super surprised that this didn't kill because I did calc it. If it was max attack, max speed, and had no HP EVs, we killed it. But because it did not die here, it actually had HP EVs. And they go for a Drain Punch and kill us and get back health. And at this point, I was like, oh, that is not good. And I was really considering whether I should go with Pyro here. Because obviously, if I don't kill a Pyro, then he Drain Punches me and I instantly lose. So this is still very, very close. So I go Tatsugiri. I spam Surf. I hit a crit. I do not know if that was a guaranteed crit because Gallade has some good special defense, but we also have a pretty high special attack stat. So very iffy. I did not really calc that. Let's calc that right now. That was another thing about this match. My Tatsugiri spread did not show up. Imports. Yeah, it only imports 5. Okay, well we're 252. Yeah, so Surf against like a Gallade, and I know for a fact that it was at least 252 HP. Yeah, so we're doing a little bit less. So honestly, that getting that crit was definitely questionable. Definitely very close here. Then they decide to go into Miss Magius, and at this point they go for a Will-O-Wisp, and I just start spamming Surf. I'm like, at this point, I really hope that this thing does not have like any moves that hit me. I think it gets Dazzling Gleam, but I'm just like, hopefully like my Tatsugiri can just wall for the rest of this match. And he does even withstand a Hex being burned, which is 120 base ghost type move, meaning that my Assault Vest is really carrying me right now. And obviously we get to this point where we can Surf again. They do reveal Pain Split, which is a little bit scary, but our Surf just ends up pulling through and Tatsugiri wins game 1. So obviously we won this game, but it was super close. Again, like I think if my opponent just like sacked something and brought out Barraskewda and started close combating, I think I kind of lost this game. And not even realizing it, I kind of just went into game 2 of like, okay, well, we won that one, hopefully we can win again. So going into game 2, I actually decided to switch up the lead. This time I'm going Sneasler first because I think it puts off a lot of offensive pressure. Turn 1, I see the Lycanroc come out. Again, I'm like super worried that this might be sashed. And I was worried about this being sashed in game, but I did realize from the beginning that it was Life Orb. But I think he also makes a good play here in the fact that like, I don't think he wants me to CC, so I think he actually predicts me to switch or at least U-turn. So he actually goes for Stealth Rex, which is such a ballsy play on him because like all he really had to do was switch into Goldingo, and he definitely walls my Sneasler. But yeah, definitely a ballsy move on his part to get the Stealth Rocks up while I U-turn. I go Klefki. I start doing my same thing of setting up spikes. He starts bulking up. I'm just going to keep spiking up. He's going to Fire Fang to KO me. I am going to get my last layer of spikes up. And then we're kind of in the same position as game 1 where because of that bulk up, I'm definitely forced to go into Samurott. And I can start going for some Razor Shells, so I just kill this thing. Even at this point, he doesn't know that I'm Scarfed, I'm pretty sure. At this point, I'm pretty sure Miss Magius comes out. So maybe he did know I wasn't Scarf there. But once I saw Miss Magius's set, game 1, I saw that it was Hex Will-O-Wisp. I was like, okay, well, this is actually really good for my Pyroar. Depending on his final move, he might not have anything for my Pyroar. Which at this point, he does go for Will-O-Wisp. And at this point, I was like, okay, well, I could go for Dark Pulse or I could go for Hyper Voice. I didn't know if I wanted to predict super hard, so I was like, I'm just going to go for Dark Pulse. And they do go into Barraskewda, take a lot from spikes, and we also make them do a lot of damage with Dark Pulse. And also in this scenario where I only have Pyroar out, I was super nervous because rocks obviously do 25% to Braviary, and I don't know, like, he'll definitely take a close combat, but if he just goes for a water type move, like, I am screwed here. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to find a good switch in. I know Tatsugiri can live 1 close combat, and then based off that, I could switch out into Braviary. So I just go straight into Tatsugiri, which we do have the Storm Drain, and they do end up going for a water move. It is super lucky for us. They switch into Goldigo, but obviously we can just spam Surf at this point because we know that they have to switch because they're banded. And they go into Goldigo. I Surf. They take a lot of damage, and also based off the fact that I am Water Dragon, I resist at least Steel. They probably should have gone for a Shadow Ball or something to do more damage here. But ultimately, it didn't matter because I am going to kill them with the next Surf. Then I think Barraskewda comes back out, sacks this. I think at this point, this probably wasn't the best play, at least in terms of what they should have done. They probably should have just done something else anyway, and then sacking the Barraskewda later on in the game would have been better for them if they wanted like a free switch in. But overall, still, like, I get it. They're just, maybe they thought that they were able to get back in with Barraskewda, but it essentially shows how important spikes were against this game of, like, Barraskewda was only allowed to come in twice this game because of spikes, which is super, super good. Miss Magius comes in, I see this, I immediately go back into Pyroar. Again, I'm put in the position of, I still don't know their 4th move. I didn't know whether they were, like, hiding onto it, trying to, like, surprise me. But I was like, okay, well, safe bet, always go for Dark Pulse here, even though they go Tauros. So I actually end up going for a ballsy play and going for Yawn instead of Dark Pulse this time. Then on the Tauros, I just sack it. I felt like going for close combat, like me switching into Braviary Hisui, I'm taking 25%, and then I am taking like a Stone Edge. So I was like, that's not really worth. If anything, it's best that this thing falls asleep. And also if he switched there, they would also be taking damage from Dark Pulse, so I was just like, this is better for me overall. I go into Braviary, they fall asleep. I set up an agility turn 1. Ugh, excuse me. And throw off an Esper Wing to make sure. I don't know if I outsped Miss Magius at that point, but I just decided to go for another Esper Wing to make sure that I do. This Miss Magius comes out. Obviously I don't kill it with a Shadow Ball. They Will-O-Wisp me turn 1, which is a good option because if they hexed here, I definitely lived it. And then they definitely need the burn hex to one-shot me. Luckily for me, I do get a roll in the second one. I think this is both a high roll to kill with a Shadow Ball. Super good. And then finally Glade comes out, and we just spam Shadow Ball and do a good chunk of damage. And Braviary also staying alive to the X's are very, very cool. So yeah, that is game 2. So obviously we won these games, but to be honest, like, yeah, I'm happy that we won, but game 1, I think we should have lost. To be honest, I think that Barraskewda had us like in the second half, had me in the second half, not gonna lie. If they actually, I think if they went Barraskewda when I only had these 3 Pokemon alive and just spammed close combat, I think we would have lost actually. Because at this point I don't have priority. I also probably should have put Quick Attack on Pyroar, I'm not entirely sure. But I definitely misplayed game 1 because I barely won that game. Because I don't think Pyroar was living a close combat from Barraskewda. Its defenses are very low. Game 2, definitely a little bit better. I think having the spikes up early definitely prevented Barraskewda from coming out a lot. Also, having my Braviary in the game prevented it from going for a close combat a lot. So that was also pretty good. But yeah, overall, Week 2 went pretty okay. I'm definitely happy that we won, but definitely know that I made some misplays and I'm gonna have to work on some strategy. But yeah, going over for week 3, just of what we are cooking in terms of our team. Now that we it is week 3, we actually got rid of Crabominable and we are bringing Gothitelle to our team, which after this is put on our team, you can definitely see our weaknesses starting to go away a little bit. Also, Gothitelle is like a very interesting Pokemon because like it's a PU Pokemon, but it's still like a fully evolved, which is really weird because like let's see here. I think it's definitely good for my draft. I definitely think Crabominable is not the play, although I think it definitely has its uses. I think it's just too slow. But looking at Gothitelle, I mean, Frisk is such a good ability to check people's items. Competitive can be good for lowered stats, whether that be like Sticky Web or Intimidate, etc. I do not have access to Shadow Tag, obviously. And then looking at its stats, I mean, overall has good defenses, good special defense, decent HP, and gets a lot of utility moves that can be very, very useful, especially like Trick Room. I think my team is naturally fast, so Trick Room is kind of bad. But overall, it's still pretty cool. Future Sight, Nasty Plot, obviously getting access to screens, and it's just pretty good utility Pokemon. So overall, I'm pretty excited about having Gothitelle on the team. But yeah, that's what we're looking forward to in week 3. I also don't know who my opponent is at the time, but you'll know next week when you see the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And shout out the New York Nickets, which is myself, for getting the stub. Very well fought, close games for sure, and GG to my opponent, Tennessee Tyranitars. So yeah, without further ado, see y'all later. Peace.